Welcome, everybody. This is the Life Enthusiast online radio and TV network, restoring vitality to you and to the planet. I'm Scott Patton, your co-host, and joining me as usual is Martin Patella, health coach at Life Enthusiast. Hey, Martin, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Sounds like you have this intro down pat. Maybe you repeated it a few too many times.
12 years of saying it. I think I know it now.
Yes.
Now, we're really excited because we have a very, very special guest. He's been on before, and the stuff that he does is absolutely amazing. So why don't you bring him on, Martin?
Indeed. Today we have Elijah Free, herbalist, a master herbalist, who has created formulas for the brand we call Earth Friend. And today we're going to be introducing 4 more items to the world. Elijah, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to be here, and I just can't tell you gentlemen and everybody out there how really excited I am to launch these products. One of the things I want to mention about these products is we don't design a product and put it out in 90 days or something. When we start talking about Cellies, that has actually been tested in our clinic for very close to 3 years. The end of the year will actually be the end of our 3-year test on it. So before we even went to label on it or even said, hey, it's going to be available, excuse me, we go through very, very rigorous tests, the same with all of ours. Cellies and Cellie support, they're in the last 3 years. She-Mend and Meadowies, which has had several names over the decades, began actually a number of decades ago and have gone through several permutations, upgrades, and redesigns. Till finally, I think we're in a really great place to market these. They've been marketed before years ago when we did something, so we did very well with them. But as we're getting ready to the beginning of the year to actually really, I hope to become a very, very popular herb company. On that, we're releasing more of our we could say our backstock. So the female tonics are really important. The Cellies itself, do you have questions you want to ask first, actually? I'm sorry, I kind of took over here.
Martin, sorry, Elijah, before we jump right into that, maybe you could give everybody a little bit of your background, and then what I'd like to do is just talk about each one individually.
You bet. Okay, I'll be 66 actually in a few weeks. And okay, if you need my address for birthday presents, okay, you can always just email me cash. But, sorry, I couldn't resist that one. When you hit 66, it's kind of a special time. Well, so is 65 and 64. But one of the points I'm making that is I've been in the healing arts since I was 17, with a few years off here and there. I started off as a wartime paramedic during Nam. I stayed stateside. I was a special paramedic, originally designed for, that's what they called us. We designed you. I was designed for battlefield usage on that, and ended up never going to Nam for a couple of reasons. And so when I left the service, I left with the most amazing training, medical training. I can do anything from deliver babies, minor operations, tracheotomies, I mean, all kinds of things like that, debris wounds. I mean, it was fabulous what they taught us. So when I went out of the service, I stayed in the traditional field, medical field, for several years. I worked as a operating room tech. However, because I was trained in the military, we got to work as nurses. So I worked either as first circulating or scrub nurse with tech pay. So the hospitals really like that. After I went to school for a while, I went back into the field and worked as a paramedic outside Boston, and then trained paramedics for a while. And then one day I just said I had enough, and I quit on it. Actually, what happened was, without going into the full story, was I was called to a cardiac arrest scene. And there was a medical doctor who actually pronounced the man dead on the spot. And we converted him. The guy lived, and the doctor charged him for the rescue. And honest to God, it's the funniest story. If you ever want to do funny stories sometimes, nothing went right that day. And yet I saved the man. Okay, nothing went right. The firemen who were there, who actually carried us down 2 floors, I used to be a lot lighter, on that, put the stretcher in backwards. So the whole time to the hospital, smashing around corners, the whole thing was smashing. The firemen inside and I were black and blue and seriously bleeding by the time we got to the hospital. Yet we saved that guy. So anyhow, that was why I left the traditional field. After that, I managed to have a very severe back injury that left me in very severe pain for 2 years that they wanted to operate on. And I said absolutely not, because I had seen those happen, and they weren't all that successful back in those days in the 70s. So anyhow, what happened was I prayed for about a year or so to get out of this pain. And I said, God, if I ever get out of this pain, I swear I'll learn how to heal other people. One day I woke up and I was completely out of pain. And as the story goes, a friend of ours hurt his back very badly. He was supposed to go to surgery the next day, and he came over that night because he had heard that I healed myself, and I healed him and found out I was a healer, which was nice. I was about 20, no, excuse me, I was probably 30 at the time, I believe. That's right. I was 30 at the time. So I had then taken off about 5 years from medicine on that, happily, not involving in it. And after that, people started showing up. Then I began having dreams about herbology. Oh, that was my structural work. And then I began having dreams about herbology and found out I was an herbalist and didn't know that. I have studied, of course, tremendously and hold a number of certifications and degrees in it. But at the time, it was like remembering something you had forgotten. So that was how everything started. So I have a very long memory, I guess, as it's put. So a lot of what I know is what I've learned priorly to this incarnation, which may sound very strange. But if you ever sat down with me to talk about the body of knowledge that I actually possess, it would be hard to learn all of that. Seriously, in one lifetime, you would have to go somewhere, I think. That's what my patients tell me and people who use that. So anyhow, how Earth Friend happened was, of course, I made herbs for my practice for many years. I started that in the second year of my practice, the beginning of the second year. So that means I've been making herbs now for close to 40 years. What then happened was I had begun an herb company, Earth Friend. And as it was becoming successful, my partner died of cancer. And at the time, I needed to fold it because I was taking care of her and her children and a busy medical practice. This was in 2000. And so I folded Earth Friend at that time and said I was done with it, didn't want to do it again on it. I didn't want to rebuild it after 2 years of recovering from my partner passing. But what happened was, over the years, people began to say, please, can we have these? Please, 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 please. And I saying, I don't want to make a lot of herbs. We didn't even have professional labels anymore. They were all little computer labels. And in the practice, people kept getting better, and I kept designing new and more different things. We ended up with a patent for the fibromyalgia formula, which I always felt mildly coerced by a group of people for that one who got involved in that. We made a lot of other wonderful things. And then we came to a very interesting point where there was a young gal named Kelly Olivier. You can read about her on my website, earthfriendherb.com, or my personal site, rapidpainelimination.com. And when I met Kelly, Kelly was about 14 at the time. And she was in excruciating pain, very ill. If she opened a doorknob, she would cry out in pain. She could barely walk. She had the worst case. She was born with the worst case of fibromyalgia I've ever seen. It was like she was made of wood, honest to God. You could tap her and the skin would not move on it. She looked like she had tubes, her arms and legs. She's a tall girl also, too. I saw her and my heart broke. And I just went, I'm going to heal this girl no matter what. 2 weeks ago, she left for college. And the day after she got there, she was playing ultimate frisbee with the boys and got invited to join the team.
Wonderful.
Now, there's a point behind this story here, which is about 3 years ago, Kelly's mom, and I kind of, even though I'm older than her parents, I kind of been adopted into the family. As you can imagine. There's a very beautiful picture Kelly did for my wall. I wish, if I was in the clinic, I could show it to you, but I don't have it here. So anyhow, Casey, Kelly's mom, took me aside one day and she said, I need to talk to you. She goes, you know, you're getting up there in years. It's true. And I've had some very serious health issues. Yeah, that has been true, but I'm fantastic again, thanks to the herbs. But she said, what would happen one day if something happened to you and Kelly couldn't get those herbs? Because Kelly will need to take the herbs for her life. But the point is, she's down to a few times a week taking them, you know, on this and everything. And that's okay. You know, she has a very wonderful life now and no pain and absolutely strong and fantastically healthy. And the mom and I sat down and we talked about it, and she talked to me about Kelly, and I started tearing up and she started tearing up. We hugged each other and I said, okay, I'll do the herb company. So that's how the whole thing started. I met Martin. It was such a blessing on it. I met Martin through my prior wife, Shastina. And apparently she's known Martin for some time, and then she introduced us together. I think it was a kind of a really great marriage made here with Martin. And since then, we have been very happily selling online and producing more products and designing things. And that's how we got to this point. What makes us a little different is we're actually one of the oldest herb companies in the United States that I know of. With that, we started back in the early 80s as Earth Friend. Again, the products that I make, they are all tested in our clinic. How we do it, which is really cool, is when we come up with something new, we give away the first batch for free on that. The worst it does is not work. But everybody gets to try it out who may need that. We get to test it, which is wonderful, and everybody gets free products. So it's a real win-win situation. The other thing, and I can probably say this in all truth, is I have been hand-making my own herbs for over 3.5 decades, and I know of no other herbalist that still does that. The production lab is mine, and I'm not happy to give it away yet or hire other people. I stay up night with my elves, and we make herbs. So this is part of my background here. I love making herbs more than just about anything in the world and designing them. And our products, my OCD-ness really comes out in the manufacturing and the quality. We have where we outsource our herbs are just phenomenal. The companies we get them from 4 companies. One is in Canada, who we get a lot of our specialty stuff from. Really amazing stuff. We have some things which are just specially wildcrafted and harvested just for us at this point, like our white pond lily, which we use a lot. So we feel that we have something very unique and very wonderful to bring forward to people. And 2017 is going to be our major year to launch. And as I said, we are so thrilled to be partnered with Martin. By the way, I just want to mention is whenever you click on our site, you get to go to Martin's site from there. Martin is our direct seller. Even though we sell to other people, from our site, Martin is the only one that you get to.
Well, it's the Life Enthusiast. I know that I'm the face behind it or in front of it. And I truly appreciate the endorsement. I guess when you play the card game with the cards face up, it ends up working out for all of us the best, right?
It has. It's been a great collaboration. And actually, what inspired me the rest of the way was working with Martin and how well everything went, the integrity behind Life Enthusiast, just everything, how fast everything moves and quickly. And I mean, on my end, I'll even say Martin pays me fantastically, which a lot of people don't with that. So there's just everything that worked, but the customer service supplied at Life Enthusiast, I'm always hearing wonderful things about that.
Wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about these 4 new products that you've come up with, Elijah. And let's start with Cell-Ease. So tell us a little bit about Cell-Ease.
Cell-Ease is magical. I think if you went back to some of the other formulas or the other 2 talks that we did, you wouldn't hear me say anything like that. This was jammed on a weekend for a very, very sick little girl on this who had MTHFR, which, without going into all of these big letters what they mean, what it is, it's a genetic predisposition, and there's 2 mutations to cells. With it, without going into lots of details, what it does is it affects several things in the system very, very profoundly. Now, part of this is my theoretical application. In other words, I came up with a theory on this and followed it through, tested the formula for years. So all I can say is so far it seems to be working pretty well. But another word for this is autoimmune disease. Now, I'm going to speculate something. So for everybody out there, this is not medical truth because of the fact it has not gone through a medical study other than working with myself, with my patients, and so on with this. But my working theory, quotes over here, is that this is very possibly what creates a number of types of autoimmune problems. So this is what happens with this problem, is that there are missing enzymes basically in the body that does not allow the cells to work correctly. Now, what these enzymes do when they've been affected genetically, when you have a genetic predisposition, I actually have the first milder mutation myself, so I've gotten to test the formula also to see what it did for me, which was actually incredibly outstanding. I was actually surprised. It's very rare that I would say this, but the formula so far exceeded design expectations. It was like, all right, okay, we got a car that's going to go 50 miles an hour and get 10 miles to the gallon. We made a car that went 200 miles an hour and get 60 miles to the gallon. I mean, it was that outstanding. It actually surprised me when we began to use it. Now, under this premise, what occurs with the missing enzymes is that it makes the cell wall non-permeable. Now, permeability to the cell is utterly important. It's like saying otherwise you get a sponge that won't pull up water. Okay, squeezing it, you're trying to get it, nothing's happening. Or you've got a window, no light goes through. Or scotch your glasses, you don't get any light through there, okay, and you're going, what's going on? This is totally opaque. Exactly. Now, when that happens, several things happen to the cell. Now, how cells get information is through chemical signals. Okay, all science can tell you that. Chemical signals tells the cells what to do, and chemical signals happens from all over the body, and they combine together at different times. So it's this remarkably complicated thing that nobody really understands. That's why they call it syndromes. When something isn't understood, then it becomes a syndrome because it's a collection of symptomology. So when they're talking about autoimmune syndrome, all they're really talking about is a huge amount of problems that seem to possibly, could be, maybe, who knows, have some kind of similar tie-in with each other. So what occurs here then, if the cell is non-permeable, then the signal can't get through the cell. Okay, that's an important concept. Let's go over that one again, because this is the basic premise, what we reverse of how cell-ease works. Again, this chemical signal produced by the body through all the hormones and everything else and all the wonderful, amazing things that nature has put in there for us can't get through the cell wall correctly. So as a result, what the cell gets then is a skewed signal, an incorrect signal, a wrong signal. Imagine over here, as we're doing the video, if you're getting wrong signals, and it shows me over here with a big eye in the middle of my head and fangs. Okay, you're getting a wrong signal. So what's happening then, the cell, instead of being told you do this, 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 and this, it's being told you do this, this, and that. When it does it, this is when we start to get the autoimmune problems, you see. Now, what the cell-ease does is it corrects that problem. Now, we don't try to make new enzymes in the body. What we do is we mimic the action of the missing enzymes. Okay, you get that? Let's go over that one again, because this point is very important on how the product works. So again, we don't try to reproduce the missing enzymes. We mimic the action. Okay, it's like saying, I want to get across the street. Well, I'm not going to walk. Well, I'll take a bicycle. Okay, I'm mimicking the action of going across the street. It's different, but I'm getting there anyhow. It doesn't really matter. In fact, I even got there faster because of the bicycle. So when, and again, very important here, when this occurs, in other words, is that the cell-ease restores the permeability, the natural permeability to the cell. Three things occurs. One is that, first of all, good things get in. That's chemical signals. That's all the good nutrients that need to get in, because when the cell is non-permeable or less permeable, the good nutrients can't get in. But not only that, the bad stuff, the material that's decayed and what needs to be cleansed, that can't get out either. So then the good stuff gets locked out, the bad stuff gets locked in. So chemical signal gets skewed, good stuff doesn't get in, bad stuff doesn't get out. So what cell-ease does is it restores the permeability of the cell, and then it has a, you're going to love this one, Scott, being a techie, it has a signal booster built in that actually boosts the quality and helps to restore the natural chemical signal to the inside of the cell.
So,
then,
Elijah, what you're saying is that you're in a house and you've got a very, very slow internet connection, but you put the cell-ease on it, and all of a sudden you've got super fast broadband and everything is just zooming along quickly.
Well, what it does is it works at the normal rate that it's supposed to. In other words, it brings it back to its natural, authentic way of being. We don't want to speed it up. By enhancing the signal, it makes sure that the whole signal gets through. You see, because, you know, even though you're turning the formula on, it's still going to take a while for it to really begin to allow the body to work. So right at the beginning, if you can get the strongest signal possible, or the clearest signal, that's what's really important. So we're not going to go over to super duper extra speed. We're going to go back to normal speed, you see, and normal works. Now, when that occurs, then the good nutrients get in the cell, and the bad nutrients, the bad stuff in the cell, the old debris, they get to come out of there. So this is the basic premise of how the formula works.
So just to repeat here,
yes.
You said at the beginning, I am aware of people with the MTHFR genetic mutation.
Yes.
And these people are famous for their undermethylation, which causes them to be less able to convert food into energy and less able to detoxify their cells. And they end up with conditions that are under the collective name of autoimmune disorders, but primarily they're known as the fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, Sjogren's, Hashimoto's, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. Now, which they're not. Hashimoto's I'm not that familiar with because there is an autoimmune effect built into that. Fibromyalgia is not an autoimmune problem. Okay, it's strictly a chemical, simple. Okay.
Please understand labels. People
got it.
With labels,
got it. Yeah.
They have this, that, and whatever.
Yeah.
I understand that the true fibrosis, which is, we should have called it fibrosis, which is the ropey, hardening tissues of the connective sort under the skin. Mm-hmm. That should have been called fibrosis. And
exactly.
we should have been calling it fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
People do, right?
Mm-hmm. At the clinic, I actually call it a fibrinous condition. I don't even like the word fibro. I try not to even use it at the clinic. I call it just a fibrinous condition.
Right. And yet, we now get thousands of people coming to us calling themselves, I have fibromyalgia, when in fact what they really have is autoimmune disorder of some sort, most likely mediated by poor digestive issues, gluten sensitivity, dairy sensitivity, other gut problems. This probably somehow relates back to the action of your enzymes, right?
Yeah. See, this is, again, even though the formula's been around for a few years, because it did more than originally anticipated in the design portion of it, I'm still studying it on that. In other words, it's doing more than it's supposed to. I'm not sure why it's doing more. I'll be truthful. It just exceeded design expectations. It was that good. So it's a complicated thing. At some point later, I'd like to, maybe in a year after we get to study this more and talk with lots of people using it online, I'd love to do a whole show just on that, with testimonials and how it works and what it works for. So that's something you and I can work with, perhaps, is to understand more of the outer parameters of how the formula actually operates. Now,
Elijah, I was just going to ask you, so at this point, it sounds like an amazing herbal concoction or design. Who would you say would be like the ideal people that would want to really take a hard look at this particular
okay. Anybody with MTHFR, for example, it was designed originally for that with it. But if any of what I'm saying even has a mild ring of truth, then that possibly, notice I'm saying possibly here because we just haven't studied it enough. We don't have enough of a selection to say for sure, but has the capacity to, how would I put it, for this to be used on a fairly wide basis. But there needs to be an autoimmune response. Okay, in other words, a problem with that. It was like when the fibromyalgia formula came out, people would go, can you use it for tuberculosis? Can you use it for colon problems? No, it's a fibromyalgia formula. You're going, well, shouldn't it do that too? No. If I have a glass of water, I'm not expecting to get essential fatty acids out of it.
Yeah. So, Elijah, let's just rattle off a list of symptoms that people typically will have that you would say, you should try the Cell Ease.
Okay. High inflammatory conditions. Now, that's different than infections. This was inflammatory conditions. This is very good. When we get to the Cellies support, we'll talk about how that's used for that. But if there's anybody suspects MTHFR, this is something that could be highly suggestive, for them to use, which is a very large part of the population on it. Now they're saying over 10, 15, 20%. No, excuse me, they're saying 40-something% of people have one or the other of the mutations or some of both. I have the first one with that, so it's something that's helped me a lot with inflammatory conditions.
So that's
right. Now, one point I just want to make here first with it is, this is just one little story, aside here, was at the clinic, one of the doctors was treating a patient for MTHFR. Nothing happened. She was using all the conventional stuff on the market that you use in case you get results. So anyhow, the patient came to see me, and we started talking, and I said, sounds like you have MTHFR. She goes, oh, yes, I've been diagnosed with that, and I've been treated. I said, has anything happened? She goes, no. So what she had was, she had a very severe lung problem. She was from an island. And it was so bad that she was on steroids and all kinds of things because it caused encapsulation in her lungs. They were so hard she couldn't cough anything up, and she could only breathe from the top half of her lungs. So I suggested she try the formula. Well, she writes me back in a week. She's beginning to expectorate, and she began to expectorate all of that stuff up. Now, we never treated her for her lungs, but her lungs healed, and the doctors originally said her lungs were so solid that she would probably die from that eventually. It wasn't cystic fibrosis. It was high inflammatory that caused just a complete closing down of the, was it the alveoli down there? Is that what they're called?
Alveoli.
Thank you. I was trying to remember that word. So what happened was, when she went on the Cellies formula, all the other stuff the doctor gave her kicked in overnight. In other words, it couldn't get in the cells, and this is a point I want to make here before I forget about this, and then we'll go on to the other things, is the stuff couldn't get in her cells. As soon as she took the Cellies, within 24 hours, the stuff kicked in. It started to work. So that's the one thing I want to mention is you've got to be careful. For example, I had a patient who had really serious fungus, and he was on all these antifungals. And he wanted me to treat him also, which of course I was happy to, but he wouldn't go over the other ones, which some of them were pretty nasty things. Well, they weren't working, but as soon as he started the Cellies, within 48 hours, he got sick as a dog from the overdose of the medications, and the doctor had to cut them down to about 10 or 15%. Excuse me, that's wrong. Cut them down to about a quarter of what they were is all he needed, which was a standard dose. So folks, please be careful with this, because if you're on other medications, especially medicines, okay, prescribed medicines, if you are on supplements, herbs, minerals, vitamins, and you take this and you have MTHFR, it's going to create more of a better absorption and a rapid absorption. Now, I just want to make one point here, is that if you don't have it, it's not going to work for you. So saying, oh, I'll take this and I can take less of something, or it's going to do this, doesn't work that way. It works specifically for this problem, but anything else that's ingested in the body, it pulls it into the cell or drives it into the cell because it's restored the natural and native permeability you see. I'm sorry, I wanted to get that point across before, to make sure that everybody understands that. And that's something you and I will need to talk with also too, for when you're counseling folks,
yes,
on that. Because if somebody's on a huge batch of something and they start that, it's going to create a pretty rapid ingress.
Yeah.
So we got to be careful with that one.
Okay, so the symptoms then will be, is diabetes in the range of the MTHFR problems? No.
Not that I'm aware of.
Arthritis? No.
Not the arthritis. Here's the thing about arthritis is so poorly named. You were talking about fibromyalgia earlier. We treat calculi arthritis all the time at the clinic, which is what arthritis, one of our earlier formulas, is for. However, that whole type of really rheumatoid arthritis, right, I haven't had a case yet come in that I got to work with, so I can't say that. However, the one formula alone won't do that. In other words, this is the formula that opens the door. And then we use other things, like, for example, we get to the Cellies support. We talk about that. It'd be a real short talk on that one. That's when there are highly inflammatory responses going on in the body, and you take the two together. with it. And the celery support helps to act as an anti-inflammatory. And it's a particular herb which has a high affinity to the celeries, and so it just literally just drives it right into the cells and helps with inflammatory processes.
All right. So then chronic fatigue, that would be a classic expression of this, would it not?
Well, that would be hard to say because chronic fatigue can be from a lot of things. It's a syndrome again.
Yeah,
See, that's the problem. You know, I mean, you could have a mom with 4 kids and she'll have chronic fatigue, you know, because she's tired taking care of the kids and exhausted. But you can have somebody with liver failure, adrenal failure, I mean, all the way to that extent. And it's all called chronic fatigue.
Yes.
So that's the thing, is that it's called a syndrome. And one more time, it has no true reality. It's a collection of symptoms that can be caused by a number of things. Let me just tell one quick little tiny little short story here. You, Martin, Scott, myself, and 7 other people are all in a parking lot, and our cars won't start. So we call the tech, and we come down, and he goes, well, okay, you all have car won't start-itis. We go, what? He goes, you have car won't start-itis inflammation, syndrome. So we go, well, then you could do the same thing to all your cars. He goes, well, sorry, actually, there's 10 different causes. Martin, you're out of gas. Scott, your battery's gone. Elijah, you lost your keys. And the other things could be 7 other reasons. Yet, the exact manifestation of all 10 of those syndrome-stricken cars all looks the same, but they have 10 different causes. Treat them all the same, and 1 car will start, and 9 cars are dead. So that's the problem, as you really well know. I can see that great smile there, that when you're dealing with something that has the word syndrome at the end, it's anybody's guess. And a good chance is that a number of people who got put in that group don't even have anything like that. It's like people with fibromyalgia. The whole thing was if you had 6 or 8 sore points, fall down the stairs, play hockey. Okay, I mean, seriously, get the flu. You know, I've had a bunch of injuries from when I used to climb a lot when I was younger. If I get a flu, I can count every one of those from the last 60 years, I swear, that I bang myself with. And I have, sure as heck, more than 8 sore spots, and I ain't got fibromyalgia, believe me.
Yes.
So
right.
Anyhow, thank you for letting me make that point.
No, that's good. I'm just driving this through to people because most of our clients have been miseducated by the general culture, the medical culture, which is owning the airwaves, that says there is a symptom, and for symptom there is a cure. Well, they actually don't cure it, they just treat it. And we're approaching it from a different place. We're saying the cause of the symptom needs to be treated, and then that is resolved. Yeah. So when you're treating the cause, which in this case is this cellular membrane permeability challenge, that gets resolved and so many things improve.
Exactly. But again, the whole concept is it opens the door. Once the door is open, there's a whole plethora of wonderful things that can help with that. So this is what we're still learning. You know how to utilize the formula and the different applications that it actually has. All
right. So one of the most common problems I have with my clients is that they tell me they are allergic to grain alcohol.
Right.
Now what? Do I tell them to boil off the tincture and try and eat it?
You know, no, actually, the heat in there will destroy what's in there, okay? To the temperature that you would need to burn off the alcohol is going to destroy the active ingredients. This is a difficult thing, Martin. I've had, I don't know how many people I've, taken care of over the decades with herbs. It's been a lot, and I have no idea how many we've sold just through you and other sites. I mean, we're talking tens and tens of thousands of bottles of herbs, I'm assuming, over the years. And and I never want to ever say to someone, gee, maybe try something different. But I'll be truthful is we have the amount of people that say that they have that problem and that we actually give the formula to that actually do have the problem, over the years, I can count on one hand. I've had numerous patients come in that said they've had that problem. In fact, this is interesting. I had a woman who said she couldn't take it. Anything with grain alcohol. So I said, try this out. If you don't like it, throw it out. So I gave her a bottle of celeries as a gift. I said, take the first dose. If you think it's a problem, throw it out. Didn't cost you a penny. She came back next week and said, can I buy a 4-ounce bottle? Okay, she said, suddenly she goes, I'm not finding myself susceptible to the alcohol problem anymore. Okay, did she ever really have it? I don't really know. Okay, she said she did, with that. So I would never discount anything that anyone tells me, especially a patient. Yeah. But I've given this to a few other people, and they all then told me, gee, I don't seem to have the problem now. Well, now, I would not suggest that they go off, and drink alcohol, let's go party tonight. But they seem to be able to handle the herbs. Now, one thing is we use a 3-week method with extra vegetable glycerin. And so we keep our alcohol content down really low. Most companies start with 100% to was Everclear, which is what? 120? Is it 120, 140?
No, 90% alcohol, I think.
Is it something? But we use, like a really low alcohol content. And so our alcohol content is one of the lowest. But we also tincture for 3 weeks on up, each one of these. Okay, right. That lets us extract. Now, because of that, our alcohol content gets diminished. So there's not that much to start in there to begin with. And our tincture base is grain alcohol, distilled water, and vegetable glycerin. So there is very, 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 very little grain alcohol in our tinctures, on that to start with. So the best thing that I can say to people is, if you're feeling brave today, try a few drops. If you really feel it doesn't, then you shouldn't, if you're not feeling this is a good day for that. But I have seen a few people that have told me they've had reactions to it, as they said they did. But with our herbs, we find that happens very, 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 very rarely. Okay. And I work in the medical clinic, we get a lot of people that can't take anything. Right. I will say, though, I'm sorry, keep interrupting you. When I mentioned Kelly earlier, we gave her the Cellies, and she was allergic to a ton of stuff. When she took it, her allergies ceased.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
Important, nice point. So, again, A lot of people come to me and say, I have gluten sensitivity or allergy. Cannot touch this. No way will I touch grain alcohol. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So the reply is the same. Please try it, because you will probably find that you are overcoming the allergy with the herbs that are in here.
We've seen that. I can't guarantee it's going to work on everyone, but I have seen this with a number of people over the last 2 years with that. So it's something that may help the folks. Like I said, the one case I really followed was Kelly, and her mom reports, and Kelly reported that she's unreactive to numerous things that she was very reactive to before, environmental things and all sorts of stuff.
Right. So, okay, so that the final word on this is, please try.
It's an interesting thing. However, my suggestion would be, if people really want to know, is there's a test you can take, MTHFR. You can look them up online. And don't even need to go to a medical office. One of the doctors in my clinic has told me now. With it, I would suggest taking the test. And seeing if you actually do.
I have taken the test. I have some of the MTHFR group problems. There are, I think, 15 or 20 different bits that relate. I don't know, all the different letters inside of that SNP. Anyway, the point being, I'm just trying to nail it down to, will a gluten-sensitive person get better only if the MTHFR is present?
I actually couldn't tell you. I wish I could. Right. These are one of the things that I think through more of a widely distributed base, hopefully we'll learn about that.
All right. With it. I'm just trying to narrow it down to how do I decide that this is for me? So your words to me back were, if you know that you have the MTHFR, take it.
I would strongly suggest that. It's helped everyone right across the board. Right now, I'm actually developing something for psoriasis. It started to work nicely. We're working on a support formula for that. It took care of part of it, but not everything with everyone, which was a little disappointing. But hopefully with a good support formula on that, which is kind of partially in the works, since I just moved the lab recently. I'm not designing again yet, probably for another couple of months or whatever. But I got something that I'm working on that I'm really hoping for that.
Okay, so will it help with old age effects? Or it's not a relevant question?
Probably not a relevant question. It would be like saying, would the fibromyalgia formula work on irritable bowel syndrome, and why doesn't it? Well, it wasn't designed for that. So as far as the aging effect, and again, I have no idea how this would work. This is just sort of, since you mentioned it, supposition, is that, if the cells are exchanging properly, it's not that it would make you live longer, but maybe since the cells work better and all of that stuff with aging, it all goes down to cells, oxidation, this and that and that and that. It's always the cell on it. It helps the cell to work better, then maybe it'll make us live longer or feel better as we live longer, but that's no way to really tell anything like that. I hadn't even thought about that, truthfully.
All right, so let me flip this on you.
Okay.
Person buys Cell Ease, either feels better or doesn't feel better, right? That is really the telling, right? Like, I'm not right. I am often tired. I'm, I don't know what else there is. I mean, the classic MTHFR problem is undermethylation, which means people in the autistic spectrum, people in the migraine spectrum, people in the back pain spectrum, they all may have the MTHFR mutation, right?
Possibly, yes.
So we're back to the autoimmune. If you have an autoimmune, go take the test, the MTHFR test, then you'll know for sure.
Then you'll know for sure. And
if you don't take the test, try a bottle.
Try a bottle and see what happens. But just so the person understands. What's that?
The point is this. The $20 for a bottle of Cell Ease is a whole lot less than the MTHFR test and interpretation.
Is it? Yeah, I have no idea. I don't even know I didn't even know it was available online until I got told, I think, last week. So I haven't even looked it up to see what it is. The costs or things. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a wrap about Cell Ease.
That was a lot. I guess that's sometime I think we'll have to do after we learn more about it. And one thing I like to mention is if people would like to send me their responses on it, email them to me. I'd be very, very grateful for that. So, if you folks out there are using Cell Ease, you want to tell me how it worked for you, that's great. And if it didn't, let me know. Maybe we can come with a workaround or different dosing with things. So email me, please. I'm a difficult person to get calling, so email Elijah at theearthfriendherb.com, or you can just go right to the site and email me from the site of Earthfriend if you'd like. But letting me know about that, I can correlate more data, and then we can do a follow-up on this at some point when we have more data and look at statistics. So I'd actually like to get statistical with the whole thing if we could.
Okay, so in closing, what is the correct use of this product?
Real simple, half an eyedropper 3 times a day and don't exceed it.
More is not better.
No, this is the point of diminishing return. It won't hurt you. If you want to turn around and take twice the amount, all you're doing is you're spending your money twice as fast. That's all that's needed of that formula. Because it works on the chemical aspect of the body and not the mass of the body, like many of my formulas, a larger dose doesn't mean a thing. What you're doing is you're affecting chemical signal, and for that, a correct dose is all you really need. Anything more than that, it's like, how much light do you need in your house? Are you going to pull the roof off? I need more sun. All the light coming in the windows is plenty on it. It's not going to do anything else. That was a good one. Okay.
All right. So let's talk about the Cell Ease support.
Now, when you look at the bottle, by the way, Martin, I want to mention as a Cell Ease support is $15 because there's only one herb in here, not 20 when you get all of that.
All right.
Now, you go, there's only one herb in here. Yeah, it's safflower petals. However, it is so highly concentrated. If you ever got this on anything you wear, you will always have a red spot on your clothes for the rest of your life. This stuff is really concentrated. But I don't even remember how I came up with this one day. I just fell in love with this herb, safflower, and which has a great Latin name, which I can't think of at the moment. Carmitha something or other is really a good one. But you take this along with the cell leaves. So when you have anything which is a, what do you call it, inflammatory process, you want to take this along with it. Now, not all autoimmune things are an inflammatory process on it. But when there are inflammatory process, you just take this with you. It's a half an eyedropper 3 times a day. You take the cell leaves first, and then you take the cell leaf support afterwards. It's that simple. So when there is any kind of autoimmune inflammatory response, cell leaves, then the cell leaf support. So they go together as a very, very nice pair and a very nice team.
All right.
But I will say, though, I don't know if you can tell here. Look how beautiful. Can you see that in the camera, how beautifully dark that is? You got that there?
Yep.
Isn't that sweet?
Okay. Yeah.
That's the quality. That's a 3-week tincture with low alcohol and extra glycerin in it, okay, to get that extract. I'm very proud of that one, even though it's only one herb. By the way, I want to mention is one of the herbs in cell leaves, it goes through Canada, and it's grown organically from an Ayurvedic clinic in India. Okay, it's our coleus root. Coleus root is one of the main ingredients in the cell leaves. Everything is on there, by the way. And as a result, we found that coleus coming from that part of the world, from this particular mountainside, was so outrageous, it really made the formula rock. And we have a wonderful place, Mondeagle Herbs, in Canada, that gets this from India. In fact, we get 5 pounds of that en route as we speak.
Awesome.
To us. Yeah.
Right.
So that pretty much covers that. Huh?
Elijah, is there any point in taking the cell leaf support on its own?
No. I really can't see the point in it. It wasn't designed for that. I tried it actually at one point as an anti-inflammatory, and it did a nice job, but a nice job as compared to an incredible job, which the cell leaves was designed to do. But in the design of the formula, I could not put in enough safflower in the formula itself to get the response that safflower does. So while there is safflower in the formula, if you put too much of it in, it's like going, wow, there's nothing in here but potatoes in the dinner. Okay, where's the rest of it? On it. So I had to make a support formula for that. There may be other support formulas in the future also too. With it, I'm hoping for one eventually for psoriasis, for example. With that, also, I think this could be a precursor to weight loss, because if I'm correct on this, is that a lot of the weight problems is a non-permeability of the cell also too. And if you're not getting a chemical signal, I've been working on this actually, if you're not getting a chemical signal, it doesn't tell you that, hey, I've eaten enough and you're full. It's all chemical signals. I've talked to patients who are quite overweight, and I've talked to one person who says in their family they have several siblings built just like them, and ever since they could remember, no one has ever felt satiated eating. So there's no signal that says, hey, there's enough. There's just constant, until finally some point somebody says, I guess that's enough at this point. So I've been hearing more of this and thinking there's something missing. So it's someday we may say, Martin, could we possibly do a test, okay, with some of your patients of say like 20 people who are such and such a weight and such a body index of fat, would you like to be test subjects? And we'll run a study. So maybe at some point in the future next year, we'll be ready for that.
And for that, you would be using this support formula or a different one?
No. We would use the cell leaves to open up the cell, and there would be a new cell, a different support formula that would help to restore that signal that says, ate enough.
All right. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So just to let you know, is we're looking for future applications for this also too, by putting a support on the side.
All right. Let's talk about the Healthy Lady formulas.
Okay, we got 2.
Which one would you like to talk about first?
Let's do Shemend, PMS, just because of the fact that's the first one you would use in stage of life. Shemend PMS would be for women anywhere from the time before you start your period all up to the time when you're beginning to go into menopause. The reason I say is before you start is because sometimes periods on young ladies can become held up for various reasons. They actually used to call that a green stick problem. Isn't that hysterical? It was the old medical term back from the 1800s. She's not having her period, it's a green stick. Can't even tell you where that one came from. But that would describe the fact that the periods didn't start. So anything from that to all kinds of cramping, period dysfunctions, it does not work on fibroid tumors. Okay, so anyone that thinks this is going to take care of fibroids, it doesn't. Okay, on that. I wish that we had something for that. The best we've done is able to halt them.
We have something for that on the enzyme side of things.
Oh, do you?
We can come up with fibrinolytic enzymes that will just melt away the fibroid tumor.
That's fantastic. I wonder how the cellies might help with that sometimes also too, to help open that up cells.
Try and do that.
That'd be a good one. So this basically is for most anything. You don't take it when you're pregnant, obviously. It's not a birth control. It will not induce more sexual desire, okay, for the lady, but it will help to regulate periods. It will help with excessive bleeding. It will help with halting bleeding. It'll help with cramps and numerous things. Now, it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 periods for it to really get underway to work. So when you start it and you go through the first few weeks and you go, well, feeling better, but this is not extraordinary. For it to really work, you have to give it some time. And we usually say it takes between 2 to 3 periods. So if you're starting a period tomorrow, that's a little soon to call that the first one. We're saying, you know, like maybe in 2 or 3 weeks is your first period with it. So to count one that's just starting today on that would not be a good test. You would have to say add a few extra weeks with that.
Okay, and how do you take this? Do you take this throughout every day, or?
Yep, half an eye dropper 3 times a day are standard.
So you need to take it. You need to take it continuously, all day, every day, all month.
Yes, exactly. Because again, now this is a tonic formula. This is a tonic style, which means it reinvigorates, rebuilds, and helps to literally revitalize right on a cellular level. And that's called tonic or tonifying herbs. We made a lot of tonic formulas. In fact, all of our original formulas were all tonic in nature, using a lot of Dr. Samuel Thompson's original work and the work of Dr. Edward Shook, who a lot of my work, original work, was based on Dr. Shook's work and Dr. Samuel Thompson. Dr. Samuel Thompson was actually the father of herbology in our country on that. People probably don't even know who he was anymore, but he was the father basically of modern herbology. And Thompsonian herbalists existed all the way up until the early 1950s, where they had the witch hunts on herbalists, starting with all of that, and actually put a number of them out of business. I knew the last one, actually, that actually knew Dr. Shook, who was a wonderful gentleman in San Francisco on Ellis Street. He had an herb shop. And it was the first time I came to California, and I went, oh my God, I'm going to go to Ellis Street and meet him. It was this little old weazened man there. We had talked on the phone numerous times, and I met him, and he met me, and I mean, we just held hands and we talked. And I said, he told me about all the amazing things he used to do years and years and years and years and years ago. This was in the 80s and later 80s. And I met him. He's far passed on now. And I literally almost went to my knees, and I just took his hands and I said, would you teach me, please? And he started to tear up, and he said, I can't. And he goes, I'll tell you why. And he put his arm around my shoulder. He put his face close to my ear, and he said, when the FBI agents came originally to put me out of business the first time, he says, they came in and they took and they broke everything and they burnt my manuscripts. He said, I was so scared, I forgot what I knew. He goes, I can't teach you because I don't remember anymore. I'm too scared. Can you believe that? All of that was lost.
The witch hunt of the Rockefeller medicine of eating all of its competitors.
Yeah, that's what happened. All of that amazing knowledge was lost.
Lovely.
All of that, yeah. So anyhow, to go back to, this was made in the tonic method, okay, of Dr. Shook and Dr. Samuel Thompson. which is how I learned a lot of my herbology, was actually by studying their works, their manuscripts, for years and years and years and years.
All right.
With it.
So here we have then the PMS product. If your periods are less than pleasant or
exactly,
or anything, add this to your life. So when they take half a dropper 3 times a day, the bottle will last
2 weeks.
So you need 2 bottles a month.
2 bottles a month, which is actually pretty good. If it's exactly half, there are 42 doses, it says on the bottle, I think. Let's 1 dropper 3 times daily. Well, they used to. I don't know why this one doesn't. Oh, here it is. Servings per container, approximately 42, 2 weeks worth. Nice. On that. That's if you get it right in there. I mean, maybe it'll be 41 and a half or 41 if you get a little extra with it. But otherwise, the bottle will last for 2 weeks.
Okay. Is this formula weight dependent or not?
No, it's tonic, so it's not weight dependent.
Okay.
And one thing I'll say is that this is a funny thing, is before I came to my clinic, actually in January, I'll be there 17 years, I was known, the thing I was known the most for was women's internal medicine. Not the bodywork, not all the other stuff I did. I had always the largest clientele of women. So it's not that this was an adjunct, just something I said, ooh, let's do. When She-Men was first developed, I had an incredibly busy practice. Half of my day was generally dealing with women's internal health issues with that. So I come with actually a very long background. But when I came to the clinic, our main doctor is just magical at that. And she does every kind of test you can imagine and incredible at reading them. She does bioidentical hormones. I mean, all this stuff. So I kind of looked at that and thought, maybe I should be doing something else. Because it was the owner and I really needed the gig and I wasn't going to compete as it was. Now I have my own niche of my specialties that developed over the last 17 years there, and that's not one of them. So I actually don't get to use these very much except when we sell them. But I have had so many people ask me specifically, actually, not so much for the She-Men, but for the Menoese, when we get to that one on it. In fact, lots of ladies have asked me for that one. So when I decided this time we just wanted to do the Sellies and support, I said, well, let's pick up, because as always, when you buy more labels, they cost less. So we just got a lot of labels. So that's why I ended up doing these two. In fact, you and I talked about it and we decided on these.
All right. Let us talk about the Menoese.
Yes. This one, when it works for ladies, it really endears to them. It doesn't work on everybody on this. Now, but how it works is this. It supplies a really wide spectrum of nutrients that are utilized in the body and what the formula then does is it sends a signal to the pituitary to tell it to utilize these in a tonic fashion. What that means then is that if you're working with hormones with anyone, okay, they have to be so specific. I mean, really, really specific. You'd have to make a formula for every single person. And it may work on Wednesday, and by next Wednesday, it's not going to work again. So the way that we got this to work was by supplying a vast amount of different types of nutrients on their plant nutrients and plant hormonal nutrients in low amounts. There is an herb, which I'm not going to talk about which one, I think specifically, but because that's one of my secrets and it took me a while to figure out. It sends a signal to the brain, and then the brain will turn around and utilize those in whatever manner it needs, in whatever proportion. So if a woman has very severe hormonal problems, probably not going to do a whole lot, okay, for them. That's something you may need bioidentical hormones for. But if you're premenopausal, you're having light menopausal symptoms, not sleeping, sweats, all those kind of things, irritability, the formula may be able to help you with that. It's one of those, works more often than it doesn't. If it's going to work, you'll know in the first bottle. You've got to take the doses. Now, what I can also suggest is that if you're having hot flashes, is take an extra dose or two. Okay? We talked about that with the cortisol formula that time, that when you went into spiking cortisol periods on that, was you would take some to help normalize. So for ladies out there going, okay, well, I'm not having bad hot flashes, but I'm getting a heck of a lot of these. Well, when you get them, start taking an extra half an eye dropper. And you could do this 3-4 times a day I know you'll go through the product more, but eventually by getting enough material in the body, it may possibly affect enough that it helps to normalize and bring the body back into more of a neutral, normalizing position again, chemically.
All right. Same tonic, three
times, half an eyedropper 3 times a day. But unlike the she-men, when ladies who are menopausal or just premenopausal, and you're having repeated symptoms, is you could take this several times more during the day very, very, very safely. Any one of these that I say you can, I tested it by taking a whole bottle every 2 days for several days. Okay, seriously, and there was no effect that I had. With the Menoese, well, what happened? I wanted to wear lipstick. No, just kidding.
I was wondering, I mean, does this have any effect on the male hormonal balances?
Not really, because it's not built for that. And I wouldn't suggest doing it a whole lot. But when I talk about those extra doses, I want to test it on me just to make sure there isn't any problem. And there won't be. I mean, I know what's in there, so there isn't by any means. Now, interestingly, this one, while our formulas have a tendency not to have lots of herbs, both she-men and Menoese have a fair amount of herbs, but they do a number of different things, and they're built with a different technology, you see, than things like fibroese or cell-ease or cortisol-ease or arthritis-ease. The technologies are very different. So the technology that we use for working with chemical signals, we don't use a lot of herbs in there. Okay, we're really hit specific. The ones that are more tonic in nature, the formulas will have more herbs in there. Then when we do things like cortisol ease, which has our what do you call it, chemical signal structure built into it, it's also tonic. So it has both those aspects, so it's a little larger because it has that tonic capacity built into it, you see. Now, what we've done also, we've started a couple of years ago using adaptogens, because now on some of the programs in the worldwide, we can get adaptogenic herbs from India and China that are guaranteed, okay, shade grown organically or wildcrafted properly, dried properly, and all of these with certificates of authenticity of those now. With that program, we get those through that house up in Canada.
All right, great. So, simple enough. If you have the menopausal issues that are bothering you, try the Menoese. Will it work pretty quickly? Like, will they know after 1 or 2 bottles, or? Oh
yeah. With that one, it's you're going to know in the first bottle. You really should on it. If you get a cessation of symptoms, it's working for you. If you don't, then it isn't. With it. But again, if you're getting a lot of repeated symptoms, you're going to have to take some repeated doses. You know, and you could do that 3 or 4. You could take an extra half an eyedropper 3 or 4 times during the day, you know, with it. If you got problems, email me. You know, I'm going to ask people if they don't call the office anymore. That's one thing I want to mention is folks from here have been calling the medical office. Please don't do that. Please just email me, Elijah@earthfriendherb.com, because the two businesses have nothing to do with each other. And our very nice people at the desk have been very happy and things, but few people call and they start going on with their life histories. So do that with me, please. Okay, if you want to do that with me, but please do not call my medical office over there. Email me, and if you need to talk to me, send me your number. And believe me, I think as many people can tell Martin, I have gotten back to people as quickly as I can and been very, very, very generous, I feel, with the time, okay, from the herb company. I think anyone that's ever contacted me from Life Enthusiast, I think, can say that. So get in touch with me direct, and please do that by email. Thank you, folks. Appreciate that.
I think we're done here. So
I think this is fabulous.
Thank you very much, Elijah. It's wonderful
Thank you
to take your time with us on this fine afternoon. Scott, are you free to talk?
I am. So thank you for joining us, everybody. Appreciate having you here. This is where I throw it back to Martin. I say, Martin, if somebody does have some questions and they want to talk to you about their specific issues and then see if they need to talk to Elijah, how can they get in touch with you?
You'll find these products at lifeenthusiasts.com. www.life-enthusiast.com or phone us at 866-543-3388. We are restoring vitality to you and to the planet.
I just want to tell people is how brilliant Martin is. I have been talking with Martin now for several years, and the information that he gives his clients are just invaluable. Martin knows these herbs by the time he's been working with them pretty much as well as I do with it. So I really encourage you to talk to Martin. Martin is the gentleman, your go-to. If there's something that he can't answer for you, then again, I am so happy and thrilled to be able to supply a good answer for you if I can. So with that, and I had something else I wanted to finish with, and now I can't think of what it was. Rats. Oh, yeah. You can also find Earthfriend Herb products at earthfriendherb.com. And remember, when you click on us, you will go directly to Life Enthusiast. Life Enthusiast will do does all the fulfillment, will give you scads of brilliant information, and we'll be happy to send them to you lickety-split. As I understand, things go out the door awfully fast.
Thank you very much, Elijah. Appreciate having you on the show with us.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you all next week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye now.